We are now live, and so you can begin our public meeting for this evening.
Very well, thank you. I'd like to call to order the board meeting of June 23rd, 2020 for the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit regular board meeting. Okay, next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Stand and salute the flag, or cross your heart, cover your heart, I should say. All right, anybody cares to salute is welcome to do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very well, thank you. All right, roll call. Christie.
Mr. Shiner.
Here.
Mr. Sarnes.
Present.
Ms. Beveridge. Ms. Bretz. Is Ms. Bretz here?
Mrs. Bretz is on the call.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I am having some technical issues, but I'm here.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Callaway Rodriguez. Ms. Sioka.
Present.
Mr. Feldbush.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Kendris.
Here.
Mr. Leonard. Ms. Maines.
Mrs. Maines is on the call.
Okay. Ms. Mock.
Here.
Ms. Schmidt. Mr. Schrock. Ms. Smith. Ms. Thomas.
Here.
Ms. Urban.
Here.
10 present, 7 absent.
All right, thank you. I'd like to note that prior to our meeting, there was an executive session this evening. In the executive session, we had the annual review of the health and safety plan for the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit, and there were personnel items addressed. Okay, then we have citizen comments on the agenda. I've been told that we have received no comments on our agenda this evening from citizens. And that gets us to item 3, approval of minutes. Up for approval are the minutes of the May 26, 2020 board meeting. I need a motion to approve these minutes.
So moved, Urban.
Second, Sarnes.
Okay, is there any discussion of the minutes? If not, I'd like to take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, move on to financial reports. Tonight we've got 3 financial reports to approve. We've got the Treasurer's Report, FR 1920-30.
Oh, hold on, Mr. Shiner. You are now muted for some reason. So if everyone, oh, no problem. So if everyone could keep their mics muted unless they're going to be voting or saying something that would help us out with the background noise.
All right, thank you, Dr. Conway.
Oh, no problem.
All right, on to the financial reports. We've got the Treasurer's Report. We've got payment of bills, and we've got ratification of investments, which is FR 1920 TAC 37 through, and that's interest for the month of May. I need a motion to approve these 3 reports.
So moved, Feldbush.
And a second?
Sioka.
Jennifer Brad.
Very well, thank you. Is there any further discussion of these three reports? If not, we need a roll call.
Sarnice,
Yes.
Bretz,
Yes.
Sioka,
Yes.
Feldbush, Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner.
Yes.
10 yes, motion carried.
Okay, we move on to committee reports. From the executive services standpoint, I could point out that it's continued to be a very challenging year for everyone. With school completing, now the focus being on how do we get everybody into school this fall. I won't necessarily say back to school, but we do need to get everybody into school. And I know that our director and all of our staff are working very hard to try to figure out how it is we're going to make all of this happen come the start of the next school year. And I just wanted to, again, thank everyone involved for trying to make this happen. It continues to be a major challenge, but we've got a good team. We'll get through it. That's all I have from the executive committee. Next, curriculum services. Sue Maines, do you have anything to add for that tonight, Sue? Sue, I think you're still muted.
I am, I'm sorry. No report this evening.
Okay, next is financial services. Bill Feldbush. Bill, do we have anything to report on that committee tonight?
Nothing to report tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Student services, Sharon Mock.
No report, thank you.
Okay, and technology and infrastructure services. I don't know if Bill Leonard is here. I don't think he is.
No, he is not.
Okay, so we'll pass on that one. And that gets us to item 6, Executive Director Report.
All
Dr.
right.
Conway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very appreciate the opportunity to share some information with the board this evening. First, one thing that we have overlooked to share with the board is how incredible of an effort was made to virtualize our operations, from not only providing services to students for our programs, assisting our districts in providing services to their students, but the fact that we've virtualized our office operations, from human resources to financial services to curriculum services to all places within the organization. And it's not without the leadership of Eric Vaughn that has occurred within the organization. And so what I wanted to do is make sure that that I publicly thank Eric Vaughn for all of his work and the groundwork that he laid for years to enable us to virtualize our operations. And so first I wanted to thank Eric publicly for all of his hard work around that. And I also wanted to give Eric kind of an opportunity to kind of share some of the things that we've done to not only virtualize our operations, but to assist districts and non-public, and as well as our own programs. So Eric, how about you give us a bit of information about the virtualization of our operations?
Sure. Let me get this started here real quick. So in March, when all the fun began, we had approximately 70 Zoom accounts that we managed at the IU. As you can see by this graph, at the end, by the end of April, when things started to taper off, we were at approximately 5,500 Zoom accounts that were being managed through technology services. So that enabled all of the teachers, not only IU teachers but district teachers that needed access to provide online instruction and therapy sessions, and all of that information was ramped up exponentially. So it was very successful, and as Zoom, as you've heard, Zoom has had the marketplace through this situation, and their exposure to getting into the classrooms was definitely noticed, and it is a very powerful tool, as we're using it this evening. Just some quick stats. From November to May, we had roughly 46,000 meetings, which are essentially what we're in now, or classroom instruction. So that's over 1 million meeting minutes that occurred, with over 334,000 participants in these Zoom sessions that have happened between that time frame. Also, during the shutdown, we deployed Microsoft Teams throughout the intermediate unit. So this application allowed for instant and live communication between team members and staff members. It allowed for instant chat communication. It allowed for video calls, audio calls, group conferencing, pretty much everything that Zoom had, but also in a different format where you didn't necessarily have to start up a Zoom call and proceed that way. So it did give communication across any type of device: laptop, phone, tablet, etc. It also allowed us to deploy a virtual call center. So calls that were coming into the organization were routed into Microsoft Teams. These call queues were managed by secretarial staff, so that when calls came into the physical IU building, they routed to Teams. They were at home. Callers never really knew that they were not actually calling into the IU building. So this allowed us to keep in contact with our districts and customers and provide a seamless solution for them. Another product that we rolled out primarily for the student services side of things is the Adobe Sign application. This allowed for electronic signatures on documents of multiple types, and just pretty much anything that needed a signature, we were able to route through the Adobe Sign system and get the paperwork flowing. Primarily a lot of this was for access billing and things of that nature to keep that process flowing. Also, we were able to deploy Adobe Creative Cloud applications. So this allowed us to deploy primarily Adobe Acrobat, which allowed us to manipulate and build PDF files. It allowed for document scanning. And then once the documents were through Adobe Acrobat, it then fed into Adobe Sign, which then could be routed and processed that way. And that is it. Are there any questions on that piece of the agenda?
I guess I would just ask for an impression at this point. It seems to me that last March and April, we went through somewhat of a difficult but demanding process to create the virtual world and get everybody oriented to it. And, to whatever success we managed to do that, we certainly did it. I've heard really good things. But now we've gotten ourselves to the point where the state of Pennsylvania is largely green, and that gives us some capacity to start bringing some amounts of students back to the school. So we might, I don't know what the thinking is on what the education might look like when the new school year starts. I can't imagine we won't be using this virtual world that has been created, but it's somewhat complicated then by the notion of bringing students back. So, Eric, Dr. Conway, you care to share any of your thoughts about where we're headed?
And actually, we have that as part of the executive director report, where we're going to have Matt Thomas talk a little bit about what our plan is to plan and what school might look like for IU programs in August into September. So if you don't mind, if
I
you
don't
press
mind waiting.
pause,
That's fine.
we will definitely address some of that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much, Eric. I got to say, my favorite out of all of this is Adobe Sign. Just that has revolutionized the way we do business and the ability to be able to get people to sign things. And I know Mr. Shiner, we used it with him to be able to make signatures, and the fact that everyone in the organization now has access to being able to create signable documents. This was a huge success among our early intervention program because of the amount of paperwork that has to be signed off by parents. And that by far my favorite part of what things we've implemented. So far, all great things. But that one there to me was is the top one. And you know how I feel about Adobe Sign. All right. Well, again, thank you, Eric. And so we're gonna move on to the next topic, and that's going to be the return to the administration building procedures. So as I shared during our last board meeting, we had and within our weekly reports that our plan of action for reopening the administration building centers on a soft opening that begins on Monday, June 29th. And prior to those who were assigned to the administration building coming back in a soft opening, and what I mean by soft opening, they're going to be working with their supervisor to determine what tasks and how much time is needed in the office to complete those tasks. We still want to be cautious over the next few weeks when it comes to bringing people together. And since we have virtualized our operations, let's continue to leverage that and keep us safe during it. So part of the return to building, and we're calling it return to building instead of return to work because we never stopped working. And so we're not returning to work because we have been working. It's really simply a return to building procedure. So anyone who's assigned to the administration building is uh, is required to take a 1 hour course about returning to the building. And so this document is one of those pieces of that course where they have to read through what their expectations are as an employee, what we have done to prepare people to come back into the building, and how we're going to continue to keep things clean and safe for them to be able to work. We've taken this content and created a narrated PowerPoint starring Sue Soltis, our own instructional designer, of an 8-minute PowerPoint that they'll watch. And then we also are leveraging our Safe Schools vector system that Eric mentioned earlier on using like coronavirus awareness, cleaning and disinfecting your workspace. And then the last video is anxiety and stress during Corona. So altogether, it's an hour training that each person assigned to the administration building is going to have to complete prior to them coming back into the building. So and we already have people have already completed it, and they feel well informed of what they need to do and what their responsibilities are, and what we will continue to do to keep people safe with that. Our goal is, if all continues to go well with the health conditions of the county, that by August 3rd, we would be fully open to the public, as well as beginning to host workshops and larger meetings, obviously within the health guidelines. So we're easing into a reopening. unlike, it's the first day of the semester and everybody rushes back to the dorm to move back in. We want to ease people back in. We want to build people's confidence. And we feel comfortable doing that by August 3rd if all continues to improve. Obviously, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll see where we're at. If we need to adjust, we will then certainly do so as a result. So what that has done is laid the foundation for how are we going to then open up our buildings for face-to-face instruction into the fall. So as you're well aware, the state has provided guidelines, and Eric, you can go ahead and stop sharing that. Thank you very much. The PDE has provided guidance to reopening to face-to-face instruction. So Dr. Thomas is taking the lead on the creation of a health and safety plan that is required to have board approval before we submit to PDE and before we provide any face-to-face instruction. So Dr. Thomas is going to be working with his student services administrative team over the next few weeks to prepare for the board to be able to vote during a special meeting in July because we start students face-to-face on August 26th, which is the day after the August meeting. And so we want to make sure that we give the board plenty of time to review, make sure everyone's all on the same page, and therefore we have to call, unfortunately, a very quick, hopefully short July meeting. So Dr. Thomas, do you just want to share a little bit about the process that you're going to be utilizing in creating this health and safety plan?
Well, there are 3 domains in which we are considering right now. One is physical readiness. So that's our personal protective equipment, our instructional readiness, and cooperative and supportive relationships with families. And so when we think about the PPE that's involved, we are in the process of thinking of all of the populations of the children and young adults that we serve, age 3 through 21, the needs of those populations, and what is going to maximize the effort no matter what. Our guiding light in this is that we are planning to operate in yellow and green very similarly with really no change. So anywhere from the current green status going back to yellow status, we are going to be offering a blended option. So we will have students face-to-face and in virtual settings throughout that, because in the case of the intermediate unit, especially for teachers that travel from building to building, we do not want our staff to serve as unintentional vectors of more contact spread. So we are planning across that. And if I may just quickly share a graphic that is a part of our guiding light with this. Our focus right now beyond the PPE is to figure out how do we empower our staff with exactly how to visualize this. And so this is a graphic we're using. We're providing, we have already provided a tremendous amount of professional development for teachers and technology for our students and for our teachers. And so if you look at the pyramid there, that's the foundation of everything we need to be planning for. We're hoping to go into that next green, red, and orange zone here as we see flexible scheduling. And we're seeing multiple models across school districts and intermediate units and how they're handling the opening or the virtualization of their programs. We know that sometimes the face-to-face instruction may not always be happening in real time. So the goal here is to find mastery of concepts and growth, which is very centered on special education. And then looking at every single learner need or characteristics, whether that's a medical need, whether that's a learning need, and to help students grow in that realm. So that just is a little bit of a flashback to a graphic we're using to help guide our administrative team right now. I do want to speak to transportation. Transportation is the one area that we're going to have to be in direct coordination with school districts, because our transportation is not only specialized and of low incidence. Sometimes we have monitors on buses and small vans, but those are also vector opportunities transient all across Westmoreland County and even out of county. We do have some students from Fayette, Indiana, and Butler County within the Clairview School. So there are a lot of considerations. We are using the framework that has been provided by the state, and we will continue to do that. Right now, we are building the Clairview document. We had a long meeting today about it. Once we build the Clairview document, which is sort of our mothership for everything we do, then we're going to take that document and we're going to put it in the context of Greensburg Partial, itinerant services, early intervention, etc. So we're building that one document now, thinking if we think comprehensively around 100 to 110 students in the building and all of the staff members, then we will be able to put that same document in the context of all of our other programs. And our goal is to no later than probably about the second week in July to give our staff the opportunity for input prior to bringing the document back for you to review. And so that this is a highly collaborative effort across all student services, programs, and staff.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Thomas. Mr. Shiner, I know that you had asked kind of an overview. Are there any questions that you might have of Dr. Thomas?
Well, I listened to your talk and paid particular attention to the part where you said there's on the order of what, 100 or 110 students, which is well below 250 in Clairview School. And I was wondering if that was a basis for saying you'd like to get perhaps all of the students back. I don't want to get too specific because of individual cases could differ. But in general, is that where we're heading?
So it's below the 250, but the population of the Clairview School falls into two categories. Of highly transient population, because we have students in group homes, in settings all across Westmoreland County that naturally would come into that facility from multiple geographic locations. So that's one problematic feature. And the other problematic feature, even again, though it's lower than 250, is the fact that we have many students, and I wouldn't say a majority, but we certainly have a concerned number of students in excess of 25 that may have a vent or a tube or something where they're being supported because of a medical compromised position. So that interfacing with other students is going to be huge. And we believe in presuming competence, but we also believe in supporting the families. And I'm sure no different than school districts are going to encounter. Some families are going to refuse to send their students to school. And in that context, to be compliant with PDE's needs, but also to be highly supportive of family decisions, we are going to provide that hybridized model. It's worked actually very well in the closure piece. I think special education in particular did a pretty awesome job because special education is designed to be goal focused and progress monitoring focused. So even though that benchmark of 250 people, it's much less than that, we have to take all of those other considerations because of the specialized need that the building serves.
So I couldn't agree more. And there are specialized needs, and we need to be very careful on how we move forward with all of that. But I just took heart from your remarks that the hybrid models, you spoke very well that they have been working. And so therefore, I conclude there's a way through it. We just have to navigate the details. So thank you. That helps a lot.
Absolutely.
Okay. And we'll keep the board informed along the way of its development, through our weekly reports. And then we do hope to share with the board the week of July 20th, a draft version of it in preparation for the July 28th board meeting, the fourth Tuesday of the month. All right. One last topic before we get into the voting portion of our meeting tonight, and that is we have some results, the WIU board election results. Our board secretary, Christy, is the point on organizing that election. And so, Christy, would you like to share the results of the election?
Yes, we had the successful conclusion to our WIU elections that happened on June 1st. I am happy to report that we had people from every district who did vote, which is unusual in looking at past years. There's usually 1 or 2 districts that no one votes, but I am happy to report that there were at least some votes from every district. We did change how we did our voting because of the in-person meetings not happening. And going forward, we are going to continue this model because we feel that it has been very successful. And just in speaking with Dr. Conway as to the privacy regarding your votes, we felt it is better to not have someone certify that piece of that document. Everyone has passed, and I already sent an email out to all of you with the election results and the updated contact information for everyone. So if no one has any questions, we can move on.
All right. Well, thank you, Christy. I know that is a lot of effort to organize the elections, and I think with the updated procedure, we're more streamlined, and everything still meets the code requirements for running an IU board. So well done, and thank you, Christy.
Christy,
Okay.
I'd just like to add that I think it was good news that we had voters from every school district this time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think our next step is to encourage participation at our meetings by the representatives from all of the school districts. And we might
I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
be doing a tad better than some instances I'm aware of in the past, but there's still room for improvement on getting our representatives to the meetings and to be able to participate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So in conclusion, Christy's going to start after every board meeting sending a recap of the board meeting to every board member. We had this report being sent out to secretaries of superintendents and superintendents in the cabinet. And Mr. Feldbush asked, hey, I hear that this is being produced. Can I have a copy? And Christy and I were like, well, everyone should have a copy of it. So to support you, you're going to be getting a recap of what was passed, the highlights. And then we do ask that you do share information at your board meetings, because we want to make sure every board member in the county is aware of what the IU does, the purpose, and how we support, all entities there. So we really appreciate your support to, make those reports, at your district level, because it's all about making sure everybody's informed about, what we do. And you should be proud to be a member of the board of the intermediate unit. So again, congratulations to everyone who was elected back onto the board. All right. Well, Mr. President, that does conclude the executive director's report, and we can move on to the other sections of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Dr. Conway.
You're welcome.
Under item 7, the WIU Foundation, I know Mr. Leonard's not present here tonight, so I don't think there's anything there to go over.
Yep. Nothing to report there.
Yep. There's nothing under item 8, correspondence. Also, there are no items under old business. So that moves us over to item 10 on the agenda, Human Resource Services. There are a number of items here, HR 1920-60 through HR 1920-68. Are there any items here that our board members would like to pull for further discussion? Okay, there appear to be no items to be pulled. Therefore, I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve these items.
So
So
moved.
moved, Urban.
Second, Feldbush.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve these items. So if there's any further discussion, please make your remarks now. Okay, if there are no more remarks, I'd like to have a vote to approve, and this should be a roll call vote. Go ahead, please, Christy.
All right, Ms. Bretz.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yes.
Miss Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarnes,
Yes.
10 yes, motion's carried.
Very well, thank you. Okay, and that moves us on to item 11 on the agenda, curriculum services. There's one item here, item CS 1920 TAC 15. Since there's only one item, I'd like to go ahead and request a motion and a second for approval.
Motion, Mock. Second, Sarnes.
Very well. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this item. Is there any further discussion? Okay, apparently no further discussion, so I'd like to proceed with a roll call vote on this item.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush, Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Kendris,
Yeah.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarnes,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
10 yes, motion's carried.
Very well, thank you. And that gets us to item 12, financial services. There's a number of items here that are up for approval. FR 1920-13 to FR 1920-20. Are there any items that board members would like to pull for further discussion? Apparently not. So with that being the case, I'd like to request a motion and a second to approve financial services items.
Motion, Mock.
Second, Sioka.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve these items. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing there's no further discussion, I'd like to request a roll call vote.
Mr. Feldbush, Mr. Feldbush, Mr. Feldbush, if your answer is yes, could you please just raise your hand? All right, thank you. Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms.
Heard it,
Mock,
yes.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarnes? You're muted, Mr. Sarnes.
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. Ms. Bretz,
Yay.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
10 yes, motion's carried.
All right, very well, thank you. And that gets us over to item 13, student services. Again, there's several items here, 3 of them, and they're items SS 1920-35, SS 1920-36, and SS 1920-37. Do any board members wish to pull any of these items for discussion? All right, hearing that no items should be pulled, I'd like to request a motion to approve and a second for these three items.
So moved, Urban.
Second, Sarnice.
And very well, it's been moved and seconded. We approve these three
Item
items.
Main.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion, Christie, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas, Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes?
Mr. Sarnice,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
10 yes, motion's carried.
Very well. That moves us on to item 14, Technology and Infrastructure Services. There are two items here, TIS 1920 TAC 14, TIS 1920 TAC 15. Does anyone wish to pull either of these items for more discussion? Okay, hearing no item should be pulled. Request a motion to approve these two items in a second.
So moved, Thomas.
So moved, Main.
So, Christie, that was second by Maines.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve these two items. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, I'd like to request another roll call vote, please, Christie.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes?
Mr. Sarnice,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
10 yes, motion's carried.
Okay, very well. And move on then to item 15 on the agenda, school board items. Here, there's several items. Items SB 1920 TAC 80 addresses the need to appoint the PSBA liaison. And then we would be voting to approve SB 1920 TAC 78 through SB 1920 TAC 83. I guess I don't have any need at this point to discuss further the SB 1920 TAC 80 need to approve a PSBA liaison. Dr. Conway, is there anything you might want to add to this item?
Sure. We're just, we would need a volunteer to represent the intermediate unit at the PSBA level in terms of, like when it comes to creating their platforms, the IU board member liaison represents the IU when making votes for the PSBA. Also, typically the PSBA liaison then is the one that attends the PSBA conference that's held in Hershey. However, this year they've canceled the physical conference, and they're going to make it a virtual conference. In terms of commitment of time, it's very, very little. It's whatever you would want to put into it. When they ask for feedback on policy and direction of PSBA, you just represent the intermediate unit when doing it. So it's not a large time commitment.
I can
Yeah.
speak to this. I have served in this capacity for the Franklin Regional School District for the last 2 years. So I guess I wasn't quite sure going through the agenda of what this item was. And it is an important task because they do vote on a platform at this meeting that they would deal with our legislators on. So I agree with Dr. Conway. It's not a big time demand, but it is an important function. So do we have anybody who would serve as
Mr.
a
Shiner
volunteer
and
for
Dr.
this
Conway?
year?
Excuse me, Mr. Shiner?
Yeah.
If I could just add, if you are a PSBA liaison on your district level, you cannot volunteer to be on the IU. You can only be on one.
Okay, good
So just
point.
keep that in mind, please.
Yeah, thanks for the point of clarification, Christy.
Sure.
Yep.
So it can't be me because I'm already on the hook for Franklin Regional for this year.
Right.
I believe Mr. Leonard was at the meeting last fall. And although I believe he was representing Penn Trafford, so I'm not sure who our representative was last year. Do you recall, Dr. Conway?
I do not recall. Christy, do you recall?
It was Mr. Leonard.
Was it Mr. Leonard?
It was. However, I do not know that he would agree to that this year if it's a virtual meeting. Quite honestly.
All right. Well, we're still.
Any volunteers?
Volunteer.
If nobody else wants it, I imagine I would take it.
Awesome. Jared, thank you. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, I think.
Because you don't have to go to Hershey to be able to participate this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Then we are at the point where we need to do a roll call. Let's see. Did I get a motion to approve? I believe I did. So
No, you didn't.
No, we need a motion.
Okay, thank you. So I need a motion and a second to approve item SB 1920 tax 78 through item SB 1920 tax 83.
So moved, Sarnice.
Second, Thomas.
Is there any further discussion on any of these items?
Hold on, Mr. Shiner. You were muted by me mistakenly. Sorry. Oh, hold on. Go ahead, Mr. Shiner. I'm sorry.
Thank you. All right. So we're at the point where we've had no further discussion on these items. So we need a roll call vote, please, Christy.
Ms. Mock?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Shiner?
Yes.
Mr. Sarnice?
Yes.
Ms. Bretz?
Yes.
Ms. Sioka?
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush? Mr. Feldbush? Okay, I see your hand. Thank you very much. Mr. Kendris?
Yes.
Ms. Maines? Ms. Maines?
Yes.
Okay. 10 yes, motions carried.
Very well. Thank you. All right. Now here's the fun part you all been waiting for. Election of our officers for the board for the upcoming year, which is something that is done in June every year. And We will start the process tonight with nominations for president. I'd like to ask for members of the board to make their nominations for a president of our board of directors.
I nominate Ms.
I think, Sue, you made a nomination, but I didn't hear who it was.
Dumaine. Hello?
Mrs. Maines, did you want to type in your nomination into the chat room and we can read it to the group?
I did. I nominated Mr. Shiner.
Oh, is that Mrs. Maines? All right. Okay, so did you get that, Mr. Shiner? I think you were nominated.
I did indeed get that. Are there any other nominations that board members would like to make? All right, then I would conclude at this point that there is one nomination for the position of president, and that is myself, Paul Shiner. And so we would need a motion and a second for election of Paul Shiner.
Wait 1 second. I think you have to do that 3 times. Am I correct? You have to ask for the motion 3 times.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have a question. Should the year say 2021 instead of July 2020?
Oh, good catch, Ms. Urban.
Thank you very much, Ms. Urban. I will reflect
Sure.
the change
I
in
thought
the
that was a
minutes.
pretty short term.
Oh my goodness sakes. I can't believe we,
That's through all of them. I apologize. Thank you for
That's
catching
okay.
that.
All right, back to the comment made by Mr. Sarnes. I believe I did request a nomination for president on 2 occasions. And so to comply with required procedures, I need to ask one more time. Are there any further nominations for the position of president? Okay, then it looks like it says there is no requirement for a motion or a second. So therefore, we need to vote on the election of president. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, right
Mr.
now.
Shiner, we do
Yeah.
need a motion to put you as the president. The prior, where it says there is no requirement for a motion or second, that is to close the nominations.
Right.
That's it.
Don't you need a motion to close it?
No, when I looked
Okay.
at the school code, there is not.
Very well. Now I understand. So we need a motion and a second for the election of Paul Shiner as president.
So moved, Thomas.
Second, Sarnes.
Next, we need a roll call vote to elect Paul Shiner as president.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarnes,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush, if you would like to enter your vote into the chat, we can record it.
He said yes.
Okay, thank you.
He typed it.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yeah,
10 yes, motion carried.
Very well. So as president, I will make the declaration that I will continue on as board president for the 2020/2021 school year. And I would like to say thank you all very much. I have enjoyed being the president of the board through the past year. It's gone very quickly, but it's been pretty amazing, some of the situations that we have navigated through. And we're certainly not finished with that yet. So I appreciate your support and all of the responses necessary to keep the IU going. I think it's a great organization, and I think it's getting better. So it's all up to all of us as a team to carry on. So next, I would like to move on to nominations for vice president. I would like to ask for your nominations for the position of vice president for the upcoming year. It looks to me like the same typo needs to be corrected here for July in 2021. All right, I need nominations for the position of vice president, please. I'd like to nominate John Sarnice for the position of vice president. Okay, I'd like to ask again for nominations for the position of vice president. And I'd like to ask one more time for nominations for the position of vice president. Okay, hearing none, the nominations for position of vice president are closed. And so Mr. Sarnice has been nominated for this position. I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve Mr. Sarnice as our vice president.
So moved, Thomas.
Second, Urban.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to elect Mr. John Sarnice as vice president of our board. Christy, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarnice,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush. I can see you, Mr. Feldbush. Yes, okay, so noted. Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
Ms. Maines, Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
yeah,
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
10 yes, motion carried.
Very well. Congratulations, John. You're elected our vice president for the upcoming year. I certainly look forward to working with you.
Well, thank you. I do the same. I enjoyed our last year.
Let's continue on an upward note then. I think we can do a lot of good things together with the board that we have. All right, the next two positions that we'll be addressing are the position of treasurer, which is currently the position that Lynn Liu holds for our board, and for secretary, which is currently Christy Ridnour. So they've done a great job for us for the past year. So with that, I'd like to proceed with nominations for treasurer. I'd like to have nominations from board members for the position of treasurer, please.
I'd like to nominate Lynn Lou. Can we do it all in one motion, both of them, or do they have to be separate?
Do them separately.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the way the votes are, we probably better do it separately.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, exactly.
Okay, we've had Lynn Lou identified as a nominee for treasurer. Are there any other candidates that anyone would like to nominate? And then I'd like to ask for a third time if any of our members have another nominee for the position of treasurer. Okay, hearing none, I'd like to close the positions, or for the, I'm sorry, I'd like to close the nominations for the position of treasurer. Now we proceed on with the election. I need a motion and a second to nominate Lynn Lou as the secretary, I'm sorry, as Lynn Lou as the treasurer for our board.
So moved,
So moved.
Sarnes.
Second, Thomas.
Very well. I'd like to call for a roll call vote for Lynn Lou, who is nominated as treasurer.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Mr. Sarnes,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush. Mr. Feldbush is a yes. Mr. Kendris,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Mock,
Yeah,
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
10 yes, motion carried.
Okay, very well. Now we need to move on for nominations for secretary.
I'd like to nominate Mrs. Rittenhour.
Okay, very well. Second request, are there any further nominations for the position of secretary? Okay, hearing none. A third request, are there any additional nominations for the position of secretary for the board? Hearing none, I would close the nominations for the position of secretary. Mrs. Christy Rittenhour has been nominated. I'd like to have a motion and a second for her election as secretary.
So moved, Urban.
Sarnes, second.
Very well. We need a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Sarnes,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Sioka,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush? Yes, so noted. Mr. Kendris?
Yes.
Ms. Maines? Ms. Maines? Ms. Maines, if you could put a yes in or no. Yes, okay. Thank you. Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Urban?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Shiner?
Yes.
10 yes, motion carried.
All right. Well, let me say right now, I'm delighted that both Lynn Lou has been voted in as our treasurer and that Christy's been voted back in as our secretary. I think it's a great team with them aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I think that concludes our voting for officers for our board of directors for the upcoming year. Then we can move on to board policy first readings. There has been a new policy that's been put together that was in your package for review, describing this new policy on how salary placements would take place in the future. And I think it's a good thing for the IU to try to define and provide flexibility for making offers of salaries to new employees based on their qualifications. Does anybody have any comments that they'd like to make at this point in time? This is only a first reading, so we'll have a second chance at it. Okay, if none, comments by citizens on non-agenda items. Again, I've heard of no comments tonight from citizens on non-agenda items. So we'll move on from there to item 19, which is an open board discussion forum. This is our last meeting of this school year, and so it's appropriate time that anyone on the board who cares to comment, you can make your comments at this time, either on current items or past items or things that are on your mind.
I'd just like to comment on the administration and all the secretaries and the teachers for putting our students first. It was a great effort. I'm sure everything didn't run as smoothly as we hoped it would be, but it was a maximum effort for our kids. So thank you to everybody.
Well, I know I've mentioned it before, and Mr. Sarnice just made a very nice comment to everyone that there's been a lot of work that's been done this year that's above and beyond what might normally be expected. And so I too want to again offer my congratulations on doing a great job to get through all of this. I will note that one feeling that I have about the IU, and I've been with the IU now for a couple of years, and the feeling that I have is that it's an interesting organization because it serves the 17 school districts in Westmoreland County. And by doing that, it provides services that are more useful if provided on a county basis than asking each individual school district to do these services on our own. But however, having said that, it's almost inevitable that there is some overlap that comes about between the school districts and the IU. I wouldn't say it's a major amount of overlap, but there are different ideas between school districts and the IU. And I think it's good to have different ideas. I think it's good to address those different ideas. And I also have encouraged the IU in general to look for opportunities where you can do a better job on a countywide level than you can in the individual school districts. A prime example of that in my mind is the E-Academy, which is doing quite a nice job. But on the other hand, I've heard individuals who have differing ideas about the effectiveness of the E-Academy. Not many, a few. So I don't think it's a major point, but those ideas are always worth discussing and seeing if we can make improvements to what works best, keeping in mind always that we're here to serve the students of Westmoreland County, and we want to do the best that we can. So I'll just make a closing remark as we move into the future. I'd certainly like to see the IU grow in its effectiveness in the upcoming year, something that I know Dr. Conway takes a great deal of interest and pride in doing very well. And so under his leadership, I think we're perfectly capable of growing the effectiveness of the IU. So I ask all of our board members to think about that while they're serving in the upcoming year, and we'll make the IU a better place. Thank you. Okay, with that, I need a motion to adjourn in a second.
So moved, Sarnice.
Second, Urban.
Okay. It's, the meeting is adjourned.
Well, you got to vote. You got to
You
vote.
gotta vote.
Or we'll be in a meeting for
Okay.
next month.
Sound like the swamp.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right, now the meeting's adjourned. Please have a great year, summer, and all of next year.